Howdy, rancheros, and welcome to The Prisoner's Dilemma, a podcast where we watch the 1960s TV show The Prisoner. I'm Brendan, and with me is the mute psychosexual monster that haunts our town, Matthew.
You typecast me in such a way I can only reply by screaming or with a Cockney accent.
You could strangle me. And then tip your
I'm strangling you. I'm strangling you. I'm strangling you. I'm strangling you.
Oh no, I'm dead now.
It's been a while since one of us killed the other one in one of these recordings.
Yeah, well, don't worry. You know what? I'm actually alive.
Oh, cool.
I'm looking at you right now, and you're a cardboard cutout.
Oh, well, I also can't speak. You've again assigned me to a role where I can't talk.
I'm looking behind you. I see your husband. Your husband is also a cardboard cutout.
That's true.
The computer that your husband is playing Ark Survival Evolved on is also cardboard cutout.
First of all, he's modding a game, but yes, it's all cardboard cutouts here, including Viking the horse, the most important cardboard cutout of all.
This week, we watched Living in Harmony, perhaps the most inexplicable episode of The Prisoner so far.
It's extremely splicable. What are you talking about?
This episode, we've joked so much about cowboys.
We have.
We certainly joked a lot more about cowboys than we did about like mind swaps and stuff like that, or sentient computers, or whatnot. Because the cowboy episode looms large in the legacy of The Prisoner, of a show that is willing to try daring things, to play with the format, to really subvert audience expectations. Mm-hmm. This episode is perhaps the most infuriating episode of The Prisoner for me, because I agree, it does subvert expectations. It does take bold risks. It does try exciting new things with the format of television. Mm-hmm. And yet, this episode sucks. This episode takes so many cool ideas and just does and fits them into the dullest, most painfully baroque episode of television. What do you think of Living in Harmony?
Coldplay voice, I will try to fix you. I really like this episode.
You truly are a mute psychosexual monster.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's a bunch of stuff in this episode that doesn't work. I agree with you. There's a bunch of stuff in this episode that is like slow and kind of boring. But I think this is a really important episode of The Prisoner in terms of understanding the prisoner and what's going on and what's being tried to be said here. And also Patrick McGowan gets to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a cowboy, baby.
He desperately wanted this, an opportunity that I think that he squanders.
Oh, yeah. I mean, his American accent is all over the place. It's awesome.
Patrick McGowan.
Uh-huh.
Hang on. First of all, let's get this correct. When was this episode produced?
1960-something. 9?
It couldn't have been 9. The show was over by then.
What? I thought they did it in the future.
Production order.
This is like third from the end, right?
It was pretty close to the end. This was the... Yes. After this episode, only 2 more were made.
Yep. Which are the next episode and then the final episode.
That is correct. The penultimate episode had already been created. An interesting
long ago.
We'll talk more about that as we get to it. But this was from part of the stretch where they were kind of like, I don't know, what else can we do? And they actually like asked the editorial staff, like, hey, does anyone have any ideas for prisoner episodes? Mm-hmm. And a number of people answered the call. They got a bunch of them. This was a story idea from Ian Rakoff, who is an editor who wanted to get into writing. Do you know much about Ian Rakoff?
I know what I had to look up for this episode. I know that he, based this episode on his time in South African anti-apartheid group. Mm-hmm. So I believe he is from South Africa. And then I believe he had a career of mostly being an assistant editor, and he was largely uncredited for his career. These are the things I know about him.
Yeah. So I got most of this from interviews with him from the documentary called Don't Knock Yourself Out from 2007. He came up with this idea.
Yep.
And it got McGowan's ear, and he got brought into a meeting with McGowan. Mm-hmm. And McGowan basically just spent the entire time shouting at him, trying to explain, like, the writing process.
Yep.
Rakoff said, quote, he was getting more and more angry. Actually, this is a little bit paraphrased. I cut this for length. He was getting more and more angry. It was all totally incomprehensible. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, if I get out of here alive, I'm lucky. That's all I want now. I don't want to be a writer. I don't want anything more to do with this kind of mania. I was absolutely frightened out of my wits.
Wow.
Yeah. Very little about, like, the plot of the episode or the idea, it seems like. It was mostly just, like, a conversation about, like, how to write television, I guess.
Right.
There's no real information on, like, what McGowan had been doing above and beyond, you know, making The Prisoner, which but widely reported to be slowly driving him out of his mind. But basically, he had that one meeting, and then he worked as an editor a little bit more with David Tomlin, and then was let go.
Right.
And then was invited back a number of months later to see the screening of the episode, within which David Tomlin basically takes all of the credit as writer. Yep. It's based on a story idea by Ian Rakoff, but Ian Rakoff basically doesn't get any writing credit for the episode. When he asked to see McGowan, Tomlin wouldn't let him see it, and that was that. He basically had this one exposure to the writing process of the Prisoner, and not only didn't get a whole lot for it, it's not clear how much of the original idea makes it into this. Whether Tomlin's justified in taking full credit for the writing of the thing to begin with, but a real sloppy process, it seems like.
Yeah. By the way, in the last Prisoner episode that we actually recorded on, I was actually meeting David Tomlin was my expectation for who did the rewrite. But I don't know that for sure. I just got the names mixed up in that one.
Oh, for Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling?
That's right. Yeah, so I knew some of this. I didn't know the extent to which he'd been sort of iced out. That's a shame.
Yeah.
David Tomlin, who does sort of take over as the writer and the director and the producer on this episode. We talked about him a bit before, but I think it's worth revisiting, right? So this was a guy who was mostly an assistant director. He was assistant director, though, on Star Wars, Indiana Jones, the Superman series, Danger Man as well. Like, he's got quite the resume to him.
Yeah, totally.
There was one quote where he was having to, get a visa in America so he could go work to do a shoot in America. And they were asking him to write down all the films he worked on. And he said that he got to about 500 and then said, well, I might as well stop there. An insane output from this guy. And I think that, like, his sort of predilections and the things that he is interested in, I think we can increasingly see that in the back half of The Prisoner, particularly with George Markstein sort of vacating, right? This is what I was saying about Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. I suspect it was Tomlin who was, like, really responsible for where that episode ended up. And I think that, like, his fingerprints are also a lot on this episode.
Totally. I think more than any other person than McGowan, you can feel his influence on The Prisoner, particularly in the back half.
Is there other stuff we want to talk about with the production, or should we get in with the episode description?
Boy, oh boy. You know, I have one other thing to say, but I think it makes more sense to throw out after the summary.
Totally.
Tell us what happens in the small village of Harmony.
I had a whole bit that I've been planning to do for a week, and you did it a little bit already, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, I reckon things start a mite unusual compared to what you might expect round these parts. No number 6 or London in that there opening, but instead a sheriff resigning, turning his badge and gun. He don't get far, though, as he's jumped by a low-down and dirty lot and taken to the town of Harmony. There, Sheriff, which is what I'll be calling the old son of a gun on account of us getting no other name for him, and that being despite the fact that it is a role foisted on him by the evil folk who control the village. Anyway, the sheriff meets the judge, what runs the town, along with his right-hand man, the kid, and dear sweet Kathy. See, the judge wants the sheriff to be the sheriff, but the sheriff wants none of that. The townsfolk, upset that the sheriff is bad-mouthing their town, descend into a lynching mob. The judge throws the sheriff into protective custody and gets the crowd Kathy's brother to lynch to quell their anger, despite Kathy's protests. That night, Kathy frees the sheriff by dropping some booze off for the kid and stealing his keys. The sheriff don't make it far, though. He's attacked once more and dragged on back to town. There, surprise, surprise, that good-for-nothing judge says he's free to go, but instead puts Kathy on trial for freeing a prisoner. Kathy is found guilty, but the judge says if the sheriff will be the sheriff, then he'll set her free. The sheriff relents, taking on the role and badge, but not the gun. The judge then sets out a reign of terror against the sheriff, having a big old bastard attack him in the street, killing a man who proposed revolting against him, and finally sicking the kid on Kathy, just as she and the sheriff were planning on escaping. This leads to a shootout, where the sheriff kills the kid, but then the judge kills the sheriff. Or he seems to. But no sooner does the sheriff die than we are returned to number 6 and the revelation that all of what has come before was an elaborate hallucinatory fantasy meant to break him. 6 runs to the Green Dome, where he meets number 2, who acted as the judge, number 8, the expert in this torture method, who acted as the kid, and number 22, who acted as Kathy. That night, number 22, clearly upset by this ordeal, wanders the fake set of Harmony, only to be accosted by number 8. He kills her as number 6 arrives, then quickly kills himself. Number 2 walks into the scene of violence and death, the reward for his efforts, and the episode ends as usual.
That is what happens in Living in Harmony, but you wouldn't necessarily know that if you were in America or France, as it turns out, during the original run, because this episode was omitted by censors.
Yep.
The reason seems to be generally speculated on to be hallucinatory drugs, but that's kind of a fig leaf given that we've seen a lot of drugs pumped into number 6 over the time that he's been in the village. Certainly people have pointed out that it's like pretty violent for a prisoner episode. Certainly I think there's maybe more death here than you would normally see in one of these episodes, although I don't know how that stacks up to episodes of spy fiction at the time.
Yeah.
I ultimately, I don't think we'll ever really know, but it seems like more than one person looked at this and thought, we don't need to broadcast this, which is interesting.
It is really interesting. The most common speculation I have seen is that at the time that this would be broadcast, this was the height of the Vietnam War.
Sure.
And there's a bunch of people who will look at this episode and say, well, the sheriff is like a pacifist figure because he won't pick up a gun.
Sure, yes.
I think that's a really shallow read.
Yeah, it's such a small part of the episode writ large, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and to the episode's credit, very little seems to happen in it. And so you really have to, like, if you want to find a reading, you have to find those things that do happen and extricate them from, like, the long spans of silence and nothing happening on either side of them.
There's some good bits of silence, but yeah. The other thing that I had seen is that a CBC exec at the time had actually said that it was because of an article that was in the news, like at the time this episode would have been broadcast.
Oh yeah,
which he felt then would cause this to be insensitive to broadcast. Now he didn't actually say what was in the article. He just said there was an article. So I don't know if that was about hallucinatory drugs or violence or LARPing gone wrong or what. But that's the claim.
You ever seen The Rundown?
I have not seen The Rundown. What's The Rundown about?
The Rundown is about The Rock as like a mercenary who is really good at guns but refuses to use them.
I see.
Learning how cool guns are.
Okay.
And saving the day by picking up guns.
I wonder if they saw this episode. Have you seen The Wild Hunt?
You mean The Witcher 3?
No, The Wild Hunt from 2009.
No, I've not seen The Wild Hunt from 2009.
It is a LARP horror film.
Oh, interesting.
It is LARP gone wrong, basically.
Great, good.
Yeah, that was a number of weird non-US films that I watched in the 2010s, including like The Sauna. No, it's not just called Sauna. The Sauna is a gay film, but Sauna is a horror film.
Eric Magnuson and his girlfriend Evelyn have a falling out, in part due to stress from Eric's dying incoherent father. She leaves to live in a live-action role-playing game whose characters such as Celts, elves, and Vikings are derived from the Middle Ages. You could spend part of your summer at the LARP camp. You could absolutely do that.
No, you can just go to live there. It's an option. Flee society, return to LARP. Which is basically what happens in this episode.
Sure, that's true. They go to... I mean, it's very, like... It's very Westworld, right? It's like, you know what? We're just gonna... It's Westworld without realizing you're in Westworld.
Yes, it is very much that. I mean, but, I think even that, like, as a concept, like, we can debate the episode, and we will debate the episode, but as a concept, right, like... There's a really fun thing in which this is continuing to play with the theme of games.
Yes.
In The Prisoner, right? Mm-hmm. Where, like, previously the games have been like an election, participating in society. And now the game is like, we're going to roleplay cowboys.
Yeah, we're going to play cowboys and bandits.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And that's like what I think is really interesting in the back half of The Prisoner, what I really mean is the final 4 episodes of The Prisoner, is the way that they're going to take metaphors, things that have been metaphorical, and they're going to take them and they're going to literalize them, right?
Sure.
And I think that's really interesting, and that's part of a trend that I want to sort of like have an eye on going forward, and in this episode.
Yeah.
Should we talk about it? Should we talk about the episode?
Patrick McGoohan really wanted to be a cowboy.
We gotta somewhere in this. We have to splice in the classic Vine. I want to be a cowboy, baby.
Do we?
It's just it's the entire motivation for the thing.
It is very impetus. like that is where the idea begins and ends, right? It's like it's not. I have a story that I think the Western would be a good medium for, or I want to say something about the way that Westerns typically operate, or I want to tell a Western and like disrupt the way that you usually think of the protagonist in those things. It is really just, I want to be a cowboy, baby.
Yeah, exactly. But so the interesting thing is when he was talking about it later. So for example, in the like, was it University of Toronto or like CBC Toronto or something like that conversation?
Yeah, I think it was
talked
Ontario.
About it a few times. It was Ontario, yeah. Like in that conversation, right? Like the way, I'm doing this from memory, so apologies if I'm off a little bit. But the way he talked about it was very much like, first things first, I wanted to be a cowboy baby. But once I was a cowboy baby, we put some additional like themes and, motifs and so on and so forth in there. So totally. I think there is depth. But it does originate from I want to be a cowboy baby.
Right. Unfortunately, like, I think given what they are trying to do with the Western and, getting to what I was saying at the very beginning about like, I think there's some great stuff in here that it just does not come together, that doesn't cohere well. I think they are trying to do a lot of stuff with long stretches of silence and communicating more with expression and with camera rather than with dialogue.
Yep.
That the cinematography is just not up to snuff with. Like, I think there's some attempts being made that Tomlin, who, as we said, is also directing, try some stuff out that I don't think really like captivates in a way that it needs to. And I think McGoohan feels bored or checked out, or dare I say even like hungover
that's
for a great amount of the time that this is being put on. Like we get the same sort of number 6 sheriff doesn't want to be here and doesn't want to sign up for the crew and doesn't want anyone to tell him what to do. But we get none of number 6's snippiness or cleverness or outrage or righteousness. Mm-hmm. It's all laconic in the extreme, and not even the laconic, like, dry wit and humor, really. It is just, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with this.
Totally.
It feels like a stick in the mud, at least for the first half of the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a couple things going on there. one thing that's definitely going on there is that the script actually, whatever, I don't know where this came from, but the final shooting script had way more dialogue in it. So there was way more dialogue from the sheriff, from the kid, from the town elder, who we only see announcing Kathy's sentencing. There's actually a whole like cut little mini plot with him and the judge. And I think part of that, one, was that the British actors couldn't do good American accents. Like, when they finally let Alexis Craner, who is the kid, right, who is magnetic. What an incredible, like, he's the best part of the episode.
He's so good.
When they finally have him speak at the end, he just has, like, a Cockney accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the kid has lines in the script. It was just like, I think they just like, you can't do this. We're just going to go this other direction. So I think that's part of it. That's one. And then two, I think they're really obviously doing like a Clint Eastwood Man with No Name sort of thing
totally.
here.
They're absolutely trying to emulate that. It's just not working.
No, it's not. It's not. But I think that it's like the production constraints around a mostly British cast. They have one sort of born an American guy. That's the number two. But a mostly British cast that just mostly can't do these accents. I mean, even Patrick McGoohan can't consistently do the accent. He's constantly falling back into number 6.
Yeah.
And the desire to emulate a certain thing leads to, I agree, trying to do this like no dialogue thing that doesn't really work.
Can we talk about Alexis Canner?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Alexis Canner.
This guy rules. This guy, who is the mute psychosexual monster, is terrifying. Yeah. He is like I said, he's quiet. He's big and tall. He loves to murder. He's got his whole outfit with like the suspenders and the top hat. He's got a real Clockwork Orange kind of vibe going to him.
Oh, yes. Very Clockwork Orange.
He represents this I don't think the threat of sexual violence has ever been on screen before this guy, but it's here. It is like this guy is going to get whatever it is that he wants, no matter what the cost. Yep. He's got this like childlike view of the world where he doesn't understand things beyond like base motivations and such, which as we'll see, it turns out to be an act, but an act that's so convincing that he falls into it, right?
Yep.
He is such a good adversary. It is really, really astonishing. We've talked before about this idea of like, oh, they chose to be quiet in this moment, like at the end of Free For All, where instead of everyone cheering, everyone falls completely quiet. I think in the case of Alexis Canner, who's playing the kid, this choice to be like, you know what, you can't do an American accent, let's just have you be quiet the entire time. It works so well. Yeah. That I think in that instance, it's like, gosh, if we
almost justifies the whole thing.
It almost does. There's some bits with him that again go on a little bit too long. Like there's this bit when number 6 is first imprisoned that he's like jumping out and pointing his gun at him, trying to get a rise out of number 6, and he's like, it just goes on and on and on and on for a little bit too long. Sure, but there's so much to the menace that he brings, far more than I think a lot of number 2s even. Totally.
Yeah, and in Doom not in Doom not in Change of Mind, right? You were lamenting the lack of goons.
Yeah, this is a good goon.
He's a great goon, right? Like part of what we're missing here are people who feel like they are not just antagonists, but like proper villains in the series, right? Like technically the supervisor, number 28, and Angelo are guest adversaries, technically, but not really. Yeah. Right? Like there's never any direct conflict with number 6, with McGoohan. But here we have like, what a good, compelling villain. So Alexis Canner was born Henri Alex Canner. They fled not Henri Alex Canner. Jewish family.
Oh, that was his name. I'm sorry.
That's his actual name, yeah.
I thought you were describing where it was he was born.
No. He's born in Nazi-occupied France. Got it. His family fled to Montreal. who was a child actor in Montreal. Then they moved to the UK. He joined the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. He took the title role of Hamlet in a production. He ends up meeting Tomlin on the set of Reach for Glory, which was a film about war orphans playing war games, where it gets a little bit too real.
Interesting.
He'll appear again in 2 of the 3 final episodes of The Prisoner. In fact, all the remaining episodes they're going to film after this, he's going to be in them.
I have to assume they saw what they had on their hands and they were like, we got to keep using this guy.
Yeah, so I think there's that. And also McGoohan really ended up really liking the guy, right? So just as McGoohan is a weird perfectionist, Alexis Kaner is also a weird perfectionist. They were telling stories about like him repeatedly practicing like their quick draws together. So he and McGoohan like doing their quick draws over and over again to like try to get them perfect.
Wow.
Right? And for what it's worth, like, you know, like you're right. The scene where he's like pointing his gun repeatedly at him in the prison cell does go on a bit too long, but like he's got great form. Like the way he can jump to "I'm about to shoot you" is impressive.
He reads as a legitimate threat, not merely to number 6, but you know, like a caged beast that will one day overcome his master. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a caged beast. That's interesting. More on that in a minute. So,
oh my God, Matthew has a caged beast. I'm dying.
yeah. I'm just gonna repeatedly kill you this episode. That's how I'll fix you.
I'll never tell you why I resigned from podcasts.
You would never. You're going to start a new podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so after this, unfortunately, Kanner didn't really have, you know, a massive career. He was mostly in B movies and some brief TV show runs. He would actually sort of be a McGoohan-like figure in terms of like, he would start showing up in TV shows repeatedly, and they'd be like he'd quit because he didn't want to be typecast, right? Things like this. He ended up making this film called Kings and Desperate Men with McGoohan, which is basically the plot of Die Hard, but in Canada. Yeah.
What?
And he would later try to sue the creators of Die Hard, saying they stole the idea from him, and he lost that suit.
Whoa.
But yeah.
I've never, in all the time, like we just recorded this episode on Ice Station Zebra, where we talked about McGoohan's film career. I've never seen this movie come up.
It's not considered to be a very good movie. Like there's some good like scene chewing with McGoohan in it. But like Kanner also directed and produced the film, and his directing was not considered to be very good. Like he clearly was inexperienced, didn't really know how to shoot scenes, so it's difficult to actually tell what's going on. But like clearly he and McGoohan remained close for years after this.
On Christmas Eve, a radio talk show host, his wealthy wife, and their mentally challenged son and a federal judge are taken hostage by a group of terrorists. The group demand a new trial on the air for a convicted comrade of theirs who the group believes was wrongly convicted due to manslaughter. The radio listeners are asked by the terrorists to act as the jury and to telephone in their verdicts to the radio station.
So McGoohan's playing the head of the terrorist cell, and Kanner is like...
He's Hans Gruber? That's so good!
McGoohan's Hans Gruber, and Kanner is, our Die Hard protagonist whose names I forget. What's his name? What's Die Hard Man name?
Bruce Willie?
No, not the actor.
John McClane.
John McClane! That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah. Okay. Should we talk through the episode a little bit?
One more thing on Alexis Kanner.
Yep.
Which will require me to reach behind me to grab a book.
Everybody can enjoy the Foley work. Our favorite. It's our favorite novel, everybody.
This fucking book. This book.
Yep.
The Official Prisoner Companion.
Yep.
On the subject of living in harmony. Mm-hmm. Alexis Kanner has a big role in the episode, and he will have an even more important role in the final episode, Fallout. There should be no attempt to see any similarity between the roles.
I did see that.
This fucking book, The Official Prisoner Companion, the only guide to the most original and innovative TV series of all time.
Yeah, they didn't even watch Ice Station Zebra.
This was written by Matthew White and Jafar Ali.
Yep.
And I am here to take them to task. This book sucks. They were cashing a paycheck. This book, we're making a podcast, yes, and we're doing our homework, but we're laying the facts bare for you to come to your own conclusions. We're independent thinkers, and we much like Patrick McGowan before us, want you to think for yourself, to come to a conclusion about what The Prisoner means, what it signifies, what it's like for an auteur to put these things together. We are not telling you that no attempt should be made to put these things together. Not like these bozos. Matthew White, author of Blackjack Basics, Leading with Courage, Daily Reminders for the Decision Maker, Amateur Rocketry, a book with a 2.5 out of 5 star rating, one written review which says, 1 star, do not waste your time. This book is like something a 10-year-old would write. It shows a lack of understanding of basic rocketry principles. And so many more poor works. I think it's a shame for the people of our country and so many more to have to go to Walden Books, to go to Books A Million, to go to Borders, to go to the many brick and mortar stores where you can buy books.
Yep.
And think to themselves, I want the authoritative word on The Prisoner. Mm-hmm. And this is what they get. It's baloney.
Yeah, it's so weird that I, who can remember things, would recommend that we buy this book. I wonder why I did that. Tune back in a couple episodes to find out.
That's right.
Anyway.
Tell me about Viking the Horse.
I've known nothing about Viking the Horse. I just saw he was in this episode and I got excited.
There's some weird, like, the shot of the horse's head is both at a weird frame rate and so closely constrained that it looks like a prop, right? That it looks like a Mary Lou, like, horse head on a stick that they're just moving back and forth.
Yeah, so Brennan's now getting us into the intro in which we see Viking the Horse.
That's right.
The opening, of course, is famously different. If you didn't watch this episode...
If you didn't watch the show, I get it.
There we go.
But this one's got cowboys.
This one got cowboys. So they basically remake the intro as we've described it previously, where instead of number 6 sort of driving up to an office to resign, it is the character we will only know as the sheriff, who is horsing up, that's the verb that they use, to the marshal's office to resign, turning in his badge and gun.
It's good. It's a good bit. It's like just completely trying to emulate the feeling of the original intro without any preface or explanation or lead in. It just drops you right in and is like, here's the show. Don't you recognize the show that you watch every week?
Yeah, I think it does a really cool immediate job of trying to get the audience thinking about, hey, you know, you might have been thinking, oh, The Prisoner is a spy story. It only really works in like Cold War, you know, Western countries that this sort of story makes sense. But you can immediately tell the same sort of story about somebody being imprisoned against their will in any time, in any era, right? And I think that's fun.
Yeah, and I think likewise, it's this... It is a good example of what we have talked about so many times before, where number 6 wakes up in the village and just has to be like, I guess this is what reality is like this week. I'm going to deal with it. Yep. Oh, everyone's going to school. Great. I'll deal with that. This week it is like, you know, you wake up and the show is a Western now, and you just have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's wild that they didn't even have the Prisoner like logo in the original print.
Yeah. You only really see the name of the episode once it comes up in those same titles.
Yep. So if you were just tuning in late at night, had never seen this episode before, imagine that. Imagine you're that person and you watch for 45 minutes and then the twist of the episode hits. That rules.
Yeah. Somewhere there's someone who's like, well, I really liked this Western show that I started watching, but all the other episodes don't take place in the West at all. What's going on?
I don't really get it.
Yeah.
Dear Patrick McGowan, can you please explain where the Western went?
Now,
Now.
we're still in the intro.
Yep.
And we're not in the world of spies. We're not in the world of the village.
No.
Which means that when it's time for the sheriff, the ex-sheriff, whatever, to be abducted, it's just a bunch of boys beating his butt. Of boys. Just wailing on him. And this is the first of maybe half a dozen instances of Patrick McGoohan just getting worked in this episode. Something that happens so frequently that I speculated out loud to my wonderful mother, who I was watching the show with. Did Patrick McGoohan really just want to get beat up a whole bunch for this episode?
More on that later too.
I don't want to act. I'm just gonna get hit a few times, and we'll call that an episode.
It's a very Catholic thing to have something you feel guilty about, and then to seek punishment for it.
Yes, that's true. I remember the scandal where Opus Dei had all of their albino monks getting beat up by Western outlaws.
Yeah. Or the famous scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where it's the monks hitting themselves in the head with pieces of wood. It's the same stuff, really.
Right.
The one thing I do like about being jumped by all these boys in the intro is that there's just the one boy at first, and he gets into a tussle with him after throwing his saddle at him. And then they do this very funny, pan over to reveal, 12 boys.
Yeah.
It's really good.
This again keeps happening where someone makes it clear, I'm going to 1v1 you. And it turns out that the 1v1 is actually, me and all of the minion level characters that I have helping me out.
Yeah. I mean, that's normal. Mini boss with some ads.
Right. Yeah. You need the ads to replenish your action points.
And then they throw him into Harmony. They take him, throw him in Harmony.
They literally drag him to town, leave him in the center of town, and let the guy in blackface explain the plot of the episode to him.
Yep. Credited as Mexican Sam.
Ay, caramba.
In the script, he's, guess what? Indian Sam.
Oh, that makes it worse?
Yep. This is Larry Taylor again. We mentioned him when he came up before. He was in Many Happy Returns as one of the Romani man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's an English actor who just did a ton of bronzing and racist parts. So they would just regularly be like, you look ethnic. Let's put some brown face on you and have you do an accent.
It's not great.
It's really bad. It's the worst thing in this episode by far. It is horrific.
Yeah.
And thankfully he's only in it for about 2 scenes, and then he's not in it anymore. But wowie zowie, this is dated as hell.
Yeah. Don't like it.
Not that it would have been any better if they'd actually gotten a Mexican actor and had him do the same role.
A role like so many in the episode where it's very difficult to parse motivation or intent. I mean,
this is, if we think about the analog, right? This is number 6 entering the village, going up to that waitress in the very first episode in Arrival, being where the heck am I?
Sure.
Oh, you're in the village, right? And getting some high level direction.
Yeah.
Right. And just as that person was assumably working for the powers that be, assumably Sam, who I'm just going to call Sam here, is working for the judge.
Yeah, you have to parse all of these people through not only them acting pretty routinely two-faced because that's what they are doing here in Harmony.
Yep.
With the additional remove that we know that this is all a simulation for number 6's benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that does mean that the characters, all the characters are thin because they're not really there.
It's almost as if they're all cardboard cutouts.
It's almost as if that is true.
Goes to the saloon.
He goes to the saloon. He gets a drink. Regulars get the first drink free. We learn from Kathy. We also meet Kathy for the first time. In the script, Kathy also says, when the sheriff replies, "I'm not regular," Kathy replies, "I didn't used to be either." Which they cut because
that's too bad. That's a good line.
Yeah, it's a good line. But they cut as much as they possibly could from this script.
Weird.
Yeah. So this is Valerie French. who is Catherine/Kathy/number 22. She was a stage and film actress, so the majority of like her career was actually behind her at this point. She was best known for a bunch of TV movies in the 50s where she would play like the leading lady. And so this is like a slightly... I don't like the term past her prime, but at least the people at the time casting her probably meant her that way,
yes.
Right? To be someone who's like a little bit older, right? Who is like had a life already, right? And so therefore, as she's sort of acting as this Bordello girl, this brothel girl, saloon girl, whatever you want to call her, right? She has this feeling of a life that has been lived outside of here, and she's being sort of held here against her will.
Right. Someone who is not like a neophyte or an innocent or anything like that. No. Someone who like understands the way the world works.
Yes. And is willing to, play the game to a large extent.
Yes.
As we will see later. And that not really working out for her well.
Right. I really like Valerie French. I think she does a good job with what she is given.
I think she also has one of the best American accents of the British people on screen.
You can tell because they give her a bunch of lines.
Yes. The people who they let speak are the people who can actually do an American accent.
Mm-hmm.
We then meet the judge, and the way we're introduced to the judge is an off-screen encounter at first. The glass of whiskey explodes.
Yeah, someone has shot it from off-screen. We don't see who shot it or anything like that. We just hear the gunshot and see the glass burst.
Okay, so this is a number of cases where the gunshots that the kid, because this is the gunshots the kid does make no sense. They defy all laws of physics.
Yeah, it is as if no one on set or involved in the production of the episode understands how a gun works or what it's capable of or how they operate.
I mean,
it is to their credit, it is a very childlike view of how a gun might work,
yes.
Right? It is very like,
yes.
In a way, you could imagine like, okay, this is playing up the fantasy of the thing.
Yes.
One of the things that I think makes this episode not work for me is this constant back and forth between this very toyetic, imagined sense of what a Western is like versus the very self-serious, drawn-out, man with no name way that everything is put together.
Now, Brandon, that's really interesting because we could say almost exactly the same thing about The Prisoner. Right?
Yes, that's true.
The Prisoner goes back and forth between extremely toyetic, silly, nonsense dream logic and really harsh spy reality.
Yeah, very self-serious, right?
Yeah. It's almost like this is a metaphor for The Prisoner writ large. So I really like the kid in this section because the kid feels to me like all the dream logic of The Prisoner, right? That's what he's sort of standing in for. There's a bunch of people, including like Leo Vader, perhaps most recently, who's like this YouTube, what do you even call those things?
VTuber.
Long form video content, not a VTuber, who in his recent sort of video on The Prisoner said that he thought that the kid was supposed to be Rover.
I was just going to say, is the kid Rover's human Sona?
So I think that's a very valid reading. Leo Vader points out that he's mostly doesn't say anything, right?
When he does open his mouth, he screams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just like an agent of pure sort of violence and id and unknowableness. Now, I don't think this quite works.
He's like a dog chasing cars.
Exactly. I don't think this quite works because, again, we get him doing some badly overdubbed Cockney voice at the end. But to me, I think it's more broad than that, right? The kid is the magical realism bits of The Prisoner,
sure.
Right? So I don't mind that his gun doesn't follow the laws of physics because that's how The Prisoner has worked. It doesn't actually follow how the real world works. It's dream logic.
Mm-hmm. I think that would work for me if we had gotten a shot of him pointing his gun at the glass instead of just nothing.
He'd actually exploded it with his mind.
That's fine. That's fine. Give me him glaring at the glass. You know what I mean?
Remember when there were telepaths earlier in The Prisoner? They should have revealed that he was telekinesis.
Boy.
Anyway, so we also get the judge also being introduced off screen, right?
Right.
He says come get a drink with me or whatever. He gets number 6, aka the sheriff, gets poured another shot of whiskey. There's a fun commonality here. We just watched Ice Station Zebra, in which whiskey is like a cure-all that can do anything. It's basically the same thing here. It's just ubiquitous. Did you see what game the judge was playing? Did you realize this?
It looked like some kind of solitaire, but I wasn't familiar with what exactly.
Yeah, so it's solitaire, or as it would be better known at the time and place. This is Patience.
Patience. Interesting.
Yeah, as a variant of solitaire. The script specifically calls it out, but the judge is playing Patience, right? Which I think works really well with the judge's character, right? The whole thing is he's like, yeah, I can wait. You're going to come over.
Sure.
This will all work out for me. I just thought that was fun.
I think he's a fun number 2.
He is a fun number 2.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this guy for a second.
Please.
So this is David Bauer. He's actually an American actor who fled to Europe due to the anti-communist purges that were happening in, the States at the time. He ended up having like a way bigger career in Europe than he ever did in the US. So he was Morton Slumber in Diamonds Are Forever. He appeared in 5 episodes of The Saint and 2 of Avengers. He was basically like a stand-in, we need like a kind of charismatic or villainous American in a European production. Like, hey, he's around. Cool. I think he does a really nice job in this episode.
Totally. I like his whole vibe. I think he does a good job as this menacing but friendly authority figure.
Yeah. He doesn't get to be, number 2 in the number 2 garb for very long.
Yeah.
But I think he is one of the better sort of like credible threat number 2s who also is clearly in over his head.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
So the judge finally gets a chat with the sheriff.
Wants him to join up.
He wants him to join his crew. This doesn't work. It's funny. This is a bit like if in Arrival, rather than 2 doing all the power plays where it was like, we had a camera inside your mirror in your bathroom, idiot. Instead, he was just like,
we know all about you and your baby photos.
Yeah, exactly. If they had just gone, all right, you've quit your one spy job. You want to work for us as a spy?
Yeah, which I imagine did happen, right?
I mean, it's definitely, there has never been that explicit of a cell made to 6, right?
Sure.
There's definitely been people like Chimes of Big Ben, right? Leo McKern, our one and only, who has sort of made the pitch of like what's going on with the village, why it's good, right? But the pitch has been less, come join our outfit, come join our side. It has been more, be a member of the village.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Be a member of the society that we are trying to build, rather than, hey, I'm in the business of hiring people who are good at violence, and you are good at that, so I would like to hire you.
Exactly. But it's interesting the ways they overlap, right? In terms of, the sheriff of a town is going to be a member of that town. Like, yeah, yes. they'll police that town, but they're also going to live in that town. And at the time, there's less of a way in a Western that you could have done the more traditional, like, hey, just live in harmony. It doesn't really work as well.
Yeah. Have you seen the first season of Deadwood?
I have not. No, I've seen just some clips.
Good show. I'm due for a rewatch, but the main character of that, played by Timothy Oliphant, basically goes on a similar kind of trajectory where he quits being a sheriff, moves to Deadwood, and there is basically no law, and people continue to pressure him of like, hey, you clearly know what you're doing and seem to have some sort of a moral compass. Will you please be our sheriff? And him being like, no, I've left that life behind. I just want to be a stupid idiot right now.
Good for him.
Yeah.
So there's a funny bit here of 6 correcting this dumb American's grammar.
that was a good bit.
And then he just leaves. He pays a silver dollar for his whiskey, and then he goes to buy himself a horse.
He's quoted a ridiculous amount of money, and then everyone gets mad at him for trying to leave town.
Yes. The horse dealer here is Douglas Jones, not Doug Jones, the famous, what's it called? Like mocap guy and like being in a weird suit guy. Not that actor.
Right. The fish what people want to have sex with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is Douglas Jones, who did a whole bunch of one-off TV work in like Z-Cars and Counter-Strike. The TV series, not the game.
That'd be wild.
$5,000. You want that skin in Counter-Strike? That'll be $5,000.
Terrorists have planted the bomb.
Kill streak.
Kill streak.
Anyway, so that all happens. Yes, then everybody gets really mad at him, including Sam, including the bystander who will later try to like, join up with the sheriff.
Yeah,
who's played by Gordon Stern here. Who was a German-born Canadian, then English actor. He was Mr. Kessler, an American-born American werewolf in London. Also, Dr. Willis Kennedy in Highlander, which is surprising to me. But yeah, they get really mad and they rush him. A guy fires a gun and is like, "Stop that!" And they take him into protective custody. And they still turn into an angry mob as soon as they leave the scene.
It's like this doesn't go anywhere, which is too bad because it's one of the more interesting like notions of the thing that the people that live here have been driven to some sort of frenzy by virtue of their captivity, that they can't imagine that someone else would ever try to break out or not want to be part of it, and so they take offense to it. Like, we've seen this kind of mania precious few times in the village, but every time that it shows up, it's striking, right? Where it's like people being motivated to some sort of bizarre mass action.
Yeah, number 2 is unmutual.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same thing.
Likewise, the scene at the end of Dance of the Dead, right, where everyone just starts screaming and rushing him. Yeah,
yeah, It's. I think there's definitely something going on here in terms of a feeling that the people here being held captive have sort of justified for themselves that it's the right thing to do.
Right.
But you're right. It's not really done anything else with in the episode, except that it leads to them seeing a different guy and being like, well, I guess we'll kill him.
I mean, maybe he did something similar based on what Kathy is saying about like how she and her folks, how she relates to this place. I could easily see like, oh, maybe her brother had tried to stage some sort of escape as well. That's never actually said, I don't think, but
no.
But they have no problem just hanging him immediately.
Yeah, not in the episode. In the script, Kathy actually does get some lines saying that like the sheriff reminds her of her brother, how he like also tried to like escape and leave this place, and like that's what's led to all of this. But yeah, they take out Kathy's brother. The judge says that like they have to give somebody to the mob, so they give him that guy. And they kill him. They put him up on a horse. They hang him as Kathy screams, like, "You have no right to do this," right? He hasn't done anything wrong. Mm-hmm. There's a fun bit here of, this sort of frenetic first-person cameras. They, like, go to hang this guy. But it doesn't, it's not super strong.
Yeah, I mentioned before, I think David Tomlin tries to do some interesting stuff with the cameras. I don't know that it all hangs together all that well, but certainly some attempts are made.
Yeah. What I do think is interesting is the music in this episode.
Yes.
So it's just all prisoner tracks, basically. Like
mostly. There's some new Western style stuff. Yes.
Particularly in the opening, there was new Western style stuff. But this scene, especially as they're like going to like hang this poor guy, it's just like some classic prisoner, like a frenetic manic thing is happening.
Yeah.
Music. Which I think is really interesting. Like, you could say this is partially being done out of laziness or like budgetary constraints or things like that. But it does have this interesting effect of, if you've watched the rest of The Prisoner and you're watching this, there's this little bit where it's like, okay, thematically they're doing a thing here, right? The use of this music, even if it's just by constraints, is tying this moment to other moments in the series.
Totally.
Which I think is fun.
Yeah, there's something to the idea, or I would like to think that there's something to the idea of, like, the things that we would see in the village being different than what is allowed to be seen in an American Western. In a medium, in a time, in a place where violence is more commonplace, and so they're more able to get away with things like just lynching a man and having that be the order of the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about Westerns to really say more on that.
Yeah.
From here, we get into the really good, the overly long but good, I think, kid in the jail cell scene.
We do. I was looking at this bit again, and this is unfortunately another bit where I think the edit really does the episode a disservice, particularly nowadays when we're watching it basically as like one big chunk, whether on disc or streaming, where we get the end of the lynch, we have Kathy screaming, and then we get a cutaway to McGowan in the cell and the kid watching him, and then we get fade out for a commercial. And then we get fade back in with basically the exact same situation just a little bit later. But the result of which is we basically have one scene that precedes it that has nothing happen in it, and then the exact same scene happened a little bit later, where really they should have just cut out that bit in the very beginning.
Totally. And we have gotten a little bit, of the kid so far. He was there in that first scene. We didn't mention it, but the sheriff immediately decks him, right? So he already doesn't like the sheriff, right? This is part of why he's trying to get a rise out of him. Mm-hmm. But this is the first scene that we really get a sense of oh, there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, he has had an entire bottle of whiskey to drink. He's falling over inebriated with it. He's throwing bottles. And then he's doing this peekaboo thing where he's pointing a loaded gun at the sheriff, trying to get some sort of a rise out of him.
And into this scene wanders dear sweet Kathy, who has another bottle of whiskey.
Yep. And a very, very, it's the same outfit that she's been wearing before, but it's very, I don't know. Maybe this is actually a little bit different. Hang on.
I think it is the only outfit they ever have her in. But I don't know
probably
for sure.
Right. But yeah, it's there's more cleavage in any one shot of her than in any other episode of The Prisoner combined.
There's true.
Very, very revealing neckline on her dress, which she carries it perfectly well, and it's perfectly appropriate to the scene. I'm not dismissing it, but she's clearly using sex appeal to manipulate the kid.
Totally. Definitely. Though, to be clear, this doesn't not mean that when the kid sort of forces a kiss on her here that she's asking for it.
Oh, not in the slightest. She's doing everything possible to evade his affections while still manipulating him to get her hands on the keys, basically.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is it's another good scene. I think this, anytime that we have Kathy and the kid on screen, it's at least a pretty good time. And yeah, it does a good job of showing okay, not only is this guy menacing, but he was directly going to do, force himself on people.
Yeah.
This guy sucks. He is a threat.
Yeah, he's terrifying terrifying in part because of his childlike grasp on the world, right?
Yeah, totally. So then Kathy leaves, saying that she'll come back later. The kid keeps on drinking. Alexis has all these really great, just sort of no words expressions that he does. Right? He looks like he's about to cry as he's continued to drink this whiskey.
Yeah, really emotive actor. Does a really, really good job of demonstrating, this weird sort of timidity when she comes in, this real eager to please when she arrives, and then when she leaves, this feeling of oh, did I do something wrong? Did I screw this up? I'm sad, but I'm angry at the same time. It's really, really good. There's some really, really good posters here in the sheriff's office.
Oh, I didn't read any of these.
Yeah, there's one that just says the bishop is coming. There's another one. There's a bunch more text on it that the biggest text says Joaquin. I can't really tell what the rest of it is. It doesn't look like a wanted poster necessarily.
Wild.
Yeah, it's like a promotional thing or something like that.
Bizarre. I have no idea what that's about. Maybe the bishop is number one.
Maybe.
Anyway,
what if the village was a Catholic church?
We can't do this. It's too much. It's too Catholic.
Kathy gives him the keys.
Yeah, Kathy, short for Catholic, gives him the keys.
That's right.
It's so funny because it's so obviously just a set where they have a blue screen to be the night sky that she's in front of.
There are some real hey, it's nighttime and we're going to go outside and the sun is just out. That we have seen before, but gosh, it feels weird.
It does feel weird. It does feel fake, but it feels fake in a way that I think kind of works for at least this episode, because it's it's drawing attention to the things that like don't quite work, that don't seem right, that feel fake. At least for me, but you don't have to agree. So she gives him the keys. He says nothing. He gets out, right? We can do this part fast. When the kid, falls asleep because of all the whiskey that he drank, he steals a horse, and he meets up with Kathy briefly, and she says that you have to go north. It's the only way out of town.
Right.
Which, how did you take that? You have to go due north to escape this place.
I mean, maybe they're on a peninsula of some kind.
Ah, that old Italian-American peninsula.
Maybe they're surrounded by intraversable terrain on all the other parts. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a mountain.
Or, maybe it's just wasteland. Like, the north is the only road that will lead to another source of water and food.
Yeah. You go through Sherlock Forest if you go due north from here.
You really cannot escape the fact that they are filming this in like central England. It is just that.
There's big stonework in a way that there never was in any Western town.
Yeah, you can see Stonehenge in the background of every shot. It's like, that's the giveaway that this is England.
I do kind of like here that like the town itself makes no sense. Like, it's clearly just like they've built this somewhere, right?
Sure.
Up against some other building.
Yeah.
Because it does have a similar feeling to how the village feels, like weirdly out of place in time, right? Like the architecture of the village makes no sense.
Yeah, it feels like a set, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the due north thing I thought was kind of an interesting thing in terms of you could do a reading around like due north, true north, like the only way out of here is through the truth, etc. It's a real stretch though.
Yeah.
I think there's just a line for the sake of having a line here. Then we get back to the jail or the goal because they spell it Gaol.
Oh yeah, like olden time.
Olden times, yeah.
Yeah.
Where the judge wakes the kid up, and this scene of the kid preparing himself to be slapped by the judge is so brutal.
So this is especially brutal when you consider all of this is for McGowan's benefit, right? And so when people are play acting, like in the previous scene where Kathy and the kid were doing this do-si-do, where they both know what's really going on here, and yet they are putting on a show for McGowan's benefit in order to keep things moving along. McGowan's out of town. McGowan's on a horse heading north, right? He's nowhere near what's going on here. And yet, this is still part of the simulation. And so they are still going through the motions, whether that is because they are that deep in character or they feel obliged to keep it up just in case number 6 is somehow around the corner or something like that because he's that tricksy. Or it really truly is like, this is the relationship that they feel like they have in this moment, and this is what they're going to do.
Yeah, bleed is a serious issue.
It is.
They should have established lines and veils ahead of time.
All right. We joke. What is bleed in LARP?
Yeah, so bleed in LARP is when basically your character that you're playing as and your own feelings start to bleed into one another.
Right.
There's in LARP especially, we said LARP several times now. We might as well go ahead and say it just in case there's anybody listening who's never heard the term, right? But LARP is live action role play. Right? So it's a bunch of people go into the woods. They say, I'm an elf, you're an orc. We're going to do spells at each other.
Yeah, it's there are obviously lots and lots of different forms of it.
So many.
It's a bit like Dungeons and Dragons, except you're not sitting around a table. You are typically going somewhere, often like the woods or some secluded place where you can occupy a character walking around and talking directly to people and going in and out of constructions and buildings and stuff like that. Some have some form of fighting involved. A lot of times there's some sort of conflict resolution kind of mechanic, but it's much more a like immersive theater version of role playing than typically sitting around the table or doing it online, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's way more embodied.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's especially common in like Eastern Europe, right? It's like very popular in Northeastern Europe, especially.
Sure.
Like the Nordic area, I guess I should say. And because of that, there's a lot of LARP studies. And one of the things that, comes up a lot in these studies is this issue of bleed, right? Of like, oh, my character really hates this character. And because of that, I start hating this person, right?
Right.
Because that person has that face and that voice and is in the same space.
And you've been saying things like, you killed my sister, or you stole my kingdom from me, that kind of thing. And you are embodying, right? You're not you don't have this level of remove of the table between you two, which isn't to say that this doesn't happen in TTRPGs as well.
Totally
I've experienced this myself, both at the table, over online stuff, and it works the other way too. If your character falls in love with another person's character, you may wind up feeling like you have romantic feelings towards the player of that character that you wouldn't have otherwise had, right?
So this is a serious issue, and there's a bunch of like best practices in terms of avoiding bleed, right? So notions of like, ways of sort of almost ritualizing the movement from being in person yourself to being in character, right? And vice versa. Notions of lines and veils of things that like you won't just do no matter what, and veils things that you like won't allow. Notions of the X card of saying like, okay, we're all going to have access to this card that basically says if something happens where you feel like it went too far, we're just going to exit. And we immediately go out of character and we're going to talk through it.
Right. Almost like if people have heard of like safety words and BDSM practices and stuff like that, it's that same sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a common history to both of these things.
Right.
And they really could have used some safety tools in the village.
Boy, oh boy, could they have. Unless, as we suspect, this is really just for number 6's benefit, so number 6 gets walloped a number of times because number 6 rides north out of town, immediately gets captured, gets dragged back to town, and walloped some more.
He is drawn, as in drawn and quartered. So he's not quartered, but he is drawn. They lasso him, they tie him to a horse, and they drag him back to town that way.
Yep.
It's pretty brutal.
It's not fun.
I mean, he's also in like way better shape than you actually would be if you're actually being dragged back to town on a horse.
Yeah.
They just put some dust on him, basically.
They do. I mean, this episode, I think, one of the reasons that I was so drawn to this notion of like, oh, he's really getting worked over is that this is one of the few episodes where we start to see the wear and tear. On Magoon, where he starts to like bandage his hand and have to like address his wounds and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that we've seen like really celebrated about the Daniel Craig James Bond, where he's like, he gets in a fight and you see the remnants of that fight as he moves forward through the scene. He's not just like refilled 100 hit points in his tuxedos in pristine condition once again, right? It's like he actually like goes through it, and you see some of that here. And I have to assume that that's because they're playing in the Western space. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, who can say? We'll get there.
Who could say? Certainly not Jafar Ali and Matthew Light, the authors of the official Prisoner Handbook. Also authors of Deliver Audacious Web Apps with Ember 2. Staging a musical. Italy of My Dreams.
Italy of my dreams.
Making money in real estate. 10 secrets to real estate success.
Exciting. And, I can't wait to read these.
Summary of leadership. 6 studies in world strategy by Henry Kissinger. A detailed summary.
Henry Kissinger. Wow.
Conscious code.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever think computers control your life? In my case, they really do. I am a computer hacker who was given the chance to shorten my prison term by helping the U.S. government develop a top-secret device to help them police the internet. However, something went wrong. This is my story. 20 pages.
Wow. How much did you buy for that? How much did that cost?
99 cents.
Wow. All right, that's about what that's worth.
Should we do a bonus episode on it?
No!
You don't think it would unlock deeper understanding of...
I don't think that. They have a trial scene. They have a kangaroo court.
Boy, do they. Goes on forever.
They have it's pretty short. This is our second kangaroo trial, like kangaroo court trial, right? Mm-hmm. We had our other one in Dance of the Dead. We don't see basically any of it. We just get the judge saying, okay, this is a trial against Kathy because she let a prisoner out. It's not against you, the sheriff, even though you were the prisoner because you were just under protective custody. And so instead, we're going to sentence her. A jury that is clearly made up of like the judge's goons says, okay, she's guilty. And the judge says, all right, I'll set her free, sheriff, as long as you work for me.
That's right.
The sheriff takes about one scene to think about this, and then he goes to the jail, where we again get to see Alexis Kaner staring at poor old Kathy. Really creepy that he's doing this.
Well, now hang on. Mm-hmm. He takes one scene, but it is maybe one of the best scenes in the episode.
That's fair.
Where the kid slides a gun down the bar to the sheriff in an effort to try and entice him into a fight. The sheriff doesn't pick it up. And so we get even more absurd gun logic where the kid starts shooting him and just drawing blood left and right without any actual trace of bullet wounds from a revolver.
Yeah, so the kid is capable of doing the wanted bullet curve. This is important to note.
God, I hate wanted.
But he's able to do it in such an incredible way that when he shoots the gun, he shoots the bullet hits Patrick McGowan just along the cheek and then whizzes back around into the gun again. He does basically a boomerang maneuver just to get reuse the same bullet.
It's the ammunition's been inverted.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is Tenet. This is a Tenet situation.
This is a Tenet situation, clearly, obviously.
Yeah. This is why they're back in Western times. It's a temporal pincer movement.
This is why Brendan keeps referencing time travel. Anyway, you're right. This
is why I keep bringing up Robert Pattinson's American accent.
It's a fun scene. To me, it's such a silly scene. Like it
is the episode at its silliest. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the most dream logic. The judge shows up and says, "All right, the kid, don't kill him. I'm going to give you your job back," staring at Kathy in the jail.
Yeah. And then the sheriff... So, yes, it is deeply silly. What I think works about this is that it's like... It has like a through line, and they actually like compose the shots in such a way that like thing leads to another in a way that just doesn't happen for so much of this. Like in the trial that we were just talking about, like it does this thing again where it's like... It sets up a thing and then it fades to black, presumably because it's going to commercial. I can appreciate that they were building for a different format of television, but like there's just so much that doesn't go anywhere. Like they're not ending on a cliffhanger or anything like that. You know what's going to happen when they put her on a show trial. And then when they come back, they still go through the rigmarole of, all right, do you find her guilty or innocent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This has like, it has the impetus. It has... the sheriff acting a little bit more like number 6. He slides the gun back and says, "Here, you need 2 guns to take on a woman," which enrages the kid even further. It's like, it's actually like building towards something.
Totally. I completely agree. I think this ending of the scene is really good.
Sure.
The middle of the scene where red fake prop blood explodes off Patrick McGowan's hand and cheek doesn't work so well.
Sure.
It's so bright red. It's like a candy.
Oh, yeah, it's like acrylic paint. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And he doesn't clean it up either. He just sort of leaves it there.
And, you know, there's this bit of the sheriff saying, "If anything happens to her," and the judge saying, "Nothing could happen to her if you were sheriff."
That's right. That's true.
Then the jail.
He goes to jail. He agrees to become sheriff. Kathy gets set free.
This is interesting because, you know, the judge says, "You're just sore. Here, put these on. A couple of cool pistols for you.
I got you some brand new guns as my brand new hire."
Yep. And
they have the company logo on them and everything.
It's just as judge.
No. It would have the penny farthing on them.
There you go. And the sheriff says, "I agreed to wear the badge, not the gun." Right?
Right.
Now, this is interesting. Because if we think about where we're at in the series so far, we've reached the point where Patrick McGowan, for much of the series... his character was unwilling to even sort of identify as number 6, even partially.
Yes.
Right? Would get mad at people calling him number 6. We have now reached the point, timeline shenanigans aside, where he will self-identify as number 6, but in a sort of sardonic way often.
Yeah, right? Where he's made a single escape attempt and then appears to completely capitulate. Is like, fine, I'll be sheriff. It seems like that's what the situation is, and I have to do it in order to protect this one woman.
Yes. And so if we clearly there is an alignment here in terms of what's happening. Especially, right? Remember, Brendan, when you first pointed out that he said, I'm number 6, that was in Hammer into Anvil.
Right.
That was out of a feeling of wanting to, get retribution for an innocent woman. Right?
Right.
Clearly there's an alignment between these two things. And even further, we can think about back in The General, what did we say the role of number 6 was? He's basically the Batman.
He's the knight. He's vengeance.
He is vengeance.
Right? Okay. New theory. I'm coming in hot with this one.
Okay.
Is the goal of the village to make number 6 care about women?
We're all such feminists. That's why there's all these science women around.
We represent the feminist Illuminati.
Oh no, it's the feminist Illuminati subcommittee.
A reckoning is being visited upon both East and West.
They have an umbrella. Watch out, number 6. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's it.
That's too bad.
But I do think that there's I do think what's happening here, right, is that they're very clearly drawing us along of being we're basically doing the plot of The Prisoner so far in miniature.
Sure. Yes.
And what do, right? As soon as he becomes the sheriff, as soon as he takes on the role of number 6, they start immediately testing him. The judge is like, okay, you want to be sheriff in this way? Let's see how you be sheriff in this way.
Yeah, it is. So when I was watching this episode, I had forgotten the reveal that it's all a hallucination. I was that guy that was just like, oh, this is an interesting Western show. I wonder what this is all about.
Brendan goes down to watch The Prisoner, immediately forgets everything that has ever happened before.
Here's the secret to The Prisoner's Dilemma. This is an aid for me specifically, because otherwise I won't know what's going on in The Prisoner. I'm creating a podcast memento. Another
memento, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't trust this man. It's a picture of me.
Don't trust his lies.
You're a genius, Brendan.
I am a genius. Well, someone was a genius. I can't remember who, but anyway, because I'm so empty-headed, because I had forgotten, I knew what was going on. I just didn't remember how it all fit together. And so I was trying to justify, well, he wanted him to be sheriff so badly, and now he's just sending bad guys after him, one after the other. This seems like
that's weird.
This is weird. This seems like a really weird situation to put someone in to be sheriff. I wonder what's going on here. This is weird.
It sure is weird that they made him number 6 and they're actively antagonistic about him when he's doing the role number 6.
Are they stupid? Are they still friends? He's sheriff now. That's what he wanted. It's like he has some other agenda.
It's almost like that.
Why is his agenda not match up with the things that he said out loud? Hi there. I'm Brendan McLeod, the host of The Prisoner's Dilemma.
To be fair to you, Brendan, that is about the depth of the prisoner analysis that a bunch of people do.
I know! The sort of thing that you might have come to expect if you thought the height of it was The Official Prisoner Companion by Jafar Ali and Matthew White.
Yeah.
Author of such things as...
Oh my god.
Our One Disheveled Shopkeeper.
What? Our One Disheveled Shopkeeper?
A young troublemaker skips school and wanders into a store with all the tools a delinquent could ever... Plastic forks coated with cayenne pepper powder, toothpaste that yellows teeth, and fowls breath, and light bulbs that smell like spoiled fish. Our anti-hero is in his element until he gets lost in the basement. The shopkeeper collapses, and he runs to the school authorities.
Fascinating. All right.
10 pages.
This is
also author of Denver, Colorado Weed Vacation Guide.
Awesome. They'll really publish anything. This is part of why I think the anti-Vietnam War like reading of this episode is so prevalent and so popular, right? Because, oh my God, Brennan just posted this weed guide. Incredible.
Mega Munchies. Stoned Adventures.
Because I think that people really want a simple cipher that just explains it.
Yeah, they just want to know, right?
Right. They want the simple...
They don't want to think.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Trying to get people to think? For some reason, that's bringing to mind visions of number 6 with a megaphone yelling at people. I don't know why, though.
Denver, Colorado Cabbage Vacation Guide.
Brenton.
Simple answers.
We have a whole scene where Zeke, the big guy,
Big Zeke,
attacks Sheriff. This is Peter Brace. He was a guard in both Arrival and Free For All. He was one of those mechanics that gets summoned up.
Oh, that's
from the
right.
below.
I knew I recognized him. He comes out of the boy elevators.
He's the one of the boy elevator men. Yeah. He was also in Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Braveheart. He just did a ton of good stunt work. He does a perfectly fine little fight here. It's one of the, more convincing. There's less of the like, I'm punching you and my punch is clearly not connecting, but you're going 5,000 feet away sort of thing.
Again, number 6 and like visibly McGowan, not merely Frank Mayer, his stunt double, is like getting pounded.
Yes.
Okay, here's a question.
Yeah.
Is number 6 a good fighter?
Is number 6 a good fighter?
Because
I think that
routinely,
yes,
he gets into fisticuffs. He gets into brawls. Yes. And like you said, most of them are a bit more on the cartoony side than this one. But we have seen him get into some other ones. We spoke well of the fight that McGowan did with Frank Mayer in Schizoid Man.
Yep, totally.
Some other ones, et cetera, et cetera. The one from Hammer into Anvil.
Yeah. I think that we're supposed to think that he is a good fighter because anytime that they put him against, in like wrestling terms, right? Anytime they book him against 1 or 2 guys, he wins.
Right.
But anytime they book him against 3 or 4 guys, he loses. So if we're going to do our shonen power rankings, number 6 is roughly equivalent to like 2.5 goons. That's sort of his trade-off point.
Right. But what's interesting about that is I don't know what it is that makes him a good fighter. Like, he's not especially clever. He's not especially big or strong or anything like that. I suppose he's determined. Like, number 6 is supposed to be like the most willful person. Yes. Maybe he's got like a Green Lantern, like he will never give up sort of thing.
Yes, we see that in this scene, right? Where like, he's like, seems like he's down for the count. He like pulls himself back up,
right?
The one guy, and then he like wins the fight.
Sure,
right?
It's interesting, It's just like this is not like he's not a wonderkind or even like an especially talented martial artist or boxer, despite what we've seen previously. My mother made the observation that if he was just on some trampolines with a tiny little swimming pool in between them, he'd be working these guys.
He'd be mopping them up.
Yeah, totally.
He is supposed to be an Olympic medalist boxer, but anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. But I think, if we think about, there's good and bad fight scenes in The Prisoner.
Yes.
But if we think about the good fight scenes and what they're trying to convey, right? A good fight scene generally should tell us something about the characters or move the plot forward, right? Etc. And I think the good fight scenes do help communicate the more broader thing they're doing with number 6, which is that like number 6 will never give up no matter what.
Sure.
Right? If there's one characteristic that number 6 has consistently, whether or not he'll give, candy to old women or not, it's that he does not give up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's part what's happening here. Though I do think that we do see him being clever occasionally, right? Like when he's fighting those boys in the woods with the change in mind fight, he is using like the equipment to his advantage.
Yeah, he does use a lasso for a Tarzan swing later on. So I guess that's
a Batman swing, I think you mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Cowbat.
Yeah. It's The Dark Knight Returns.
Yep.
He's super old. Robin's a girl now. Speaking of Robin, can we talk about this little boy?
Yeah, of course. The one child who has shown up so far.
The one child.
We've made it. We made it to One Child Town.
What's this child doing here?
Well, they look like he was just out at the Gap getting some new clothes.
Yeah, he looks like he's lost. He looks like this is Sean, and Ethan Mars is like wandering around trying to find him.
Sean. Yeah. I don't know why. Like, there hasn't been a single child this whole time. But they were like, we gotta get a kid.
If you haven't seen the show, I get it. But in the very last shot of this fight scene that we're talking about, they're outside. They're out in the town square. McGowan has just finished, like, he's barely hanging on to consciousness, but he won the fight.
Yep.
And everyone's sort of standing around watching. And there's this one little kid there. There's like a 6-year-old boy in a plaid shirt and jeans.
Yep.
Who's like holding his hands in front of him, like awkwardly, like watching this scene go down.
Looking off screen, clearly at a parent or guardian.
He's like looking at this like man lying on the ground, and he's like,
confused.
Yeah, it's like, what, are they still friends?
In my memory, at least, he also like takes a left step to get into frame. Is that true?
It's something like that. Yeah, you can feel the cameraman trying to be like, "Oh, there's a kid. I need to get him in there. Otherwise, it's going to be like halfway in. It's going to be worse." This kid never shows up again.
No,
he's not significant in any way. He's just It's just like...
Except Brendan, he's foreshadowing for the next episode.
He is foreshadowing. That's what's going on. A specter is haunting Harmony. The specter of children.
Oh, man. Yeah. Who knows? Anyway, at this point, we get a fun scene where we get Will, who's played by Michael Balfour, who's the guy the kid kills.
That's right.
Who is a comedic actor. He appeared in Danger Man, Avengers, Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, etc. He's having a fun time at the saloon. The kid tosses him a gun because he was getting cozy with Kathy and immediately kills him.
That's right.
Sheriff wanders in after he's splashed some water on his face or whatever. And people in town, the bystander, this one guy who, again, as I mentioned, has way more credits than you would expect for this bit part that he has here. Gordon Stern. He says, "Sheriff, it's time for you to do something." In the very next scene, he then goes up to him in his sheriff's office and says, "All right, Sheriff, I'm going to help you take down the judge."
And then the very next scene, the judge has him killed because, of course, he saw him go into the front door of the sheriff's office in the middle of the day because there's only 17 people that live in this town. They have nothing to do but keep eyes on one another.
When the sheriff finds the dead body of the bystander here, for a moment he grabs his guns, and then he thinks to himself, wait, hold on, that wasn't a woman that just got killed, so I can't grab these yet.
It's not time yet.
It's not time. I do think what's interesting here, right, is that, like, we do, again, have a little bit of the prisoner in miniature.
Yes.
Where we have people who show up supposedly for the goal of helping Number 6 or old allies, right? Remember Dance of the Dead, right? And Dutton showing up there, who, like, as soon as they show up and, like, seem to connect with Number 6, they're immediately either really killed or have their brains scrambled or
revealed to be a traitor.
They were always a plant.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're doing one of those, right? But we're speed running the prisoner here.
Totally.
Patrick's going for a PB.
And just like the prisoner, it motivates him to yet another escape attempt.
Exactly. This time he goes up to Kathy, says, okay, we're going to try to escape tonight. Kathy says there's no way we can do this. And he says, don't worry, I'm going to clear out all the grunts ahead of time before they can respawn. So we'll be able to make it no problem. The judge says, he's getting mighty close to Kathy. Somebody should let the kid know about that. Setting up the end of the episode.
The end of the Western episode.
Yes. Well, it's the climax of the episode, I guess what I should say.
Sure.
We then get a series of extremely silly, shot during the daytime, put a nighttime filter on it, scenes of Patrick McGowan taking out guys with Western tricks.
Yep. He's sneaking through the bushes.
Yep.
He's throwing rocks to create audio distractions. He's putting magazines down. Keep people occupied.
The guards keep going, must have been the wind.
That's right.
As they walk slowly back towards their original spawn point.
And then we have a terrifying sequence where the kid corners Kathy in the saloon.
Yes.
And strangles her.
Again, your point earlier, right? About like 6 is not anywhere close to them at this point.
Yeah.
And
she could have just lied down on the ground.
Yes. And yet they're so in it.
Okay, well, I say that she could have just lied down on the ground. We get a very important shot after he comes back and discovers her dead on the stairs. Do you remember?
Yes. The crucifix?
We get him in the graveyard with a shovel silhouetted.
It's like a 2-second shot.
He buries her.
Yes, he buries her.
How does this hallucination work?
As we've seen, they're all cardboard cutouts, Brendan. And they're projecting the audio in from elsewhere. He just buried a cardboard cutout.
He buried a cardboard cutout. Okay. Like I Am Legend.
That scene, though, of him with like in shadow with the crosses is the best shot in the episode. It's not even close.
It's really good.
It looks so good. It's also kind of interesting in terms of your point of like people being tortured and then somebody being killed and then there's a crucifix, right?
Yeah, weird.
It's kind of Easter, kind of not Easter Sunday. Sorry, it's kind of like, the week of Easter time. We got some Good Friday stuff going on, right? Where like we're doing the signs of the cross. We have Patrick McGowan beaten up a whole bunch, and then there's 3 crosses on screen.
You know what? He kind of looks like a cardboard cutout.
He does kind of look like a cardboard cutout in that scene.
Yeah.
There's actually 5 crosses, but there are 3 sort of very obvious crosses.
There are 7 crosses.
Whoa, 7.
One for each of the apostles' magic gems.
Yeah, that's what it was. And you have to put them together, and then they can summon Jesus, and he goes, the power is yours.
No, that's silly.
That is silly, you're right. That's not how any of this works. Anyway, he goes back, he grabs his guns.
It's finally gun time.
This is really interesting, because if we follow the metaphor of the series so far, the sheriff is now reaching a point that number 6 has not reached.
If we think about this as the prisoner in miniature,
yes,
this is the experience of being brought to the village exceeding the point that we have seen number 6 be brought to in the show. Because not only has he decided, like, okay, fine, I'll be part of the village, but now he is going to embrace a part of himself that he had said, no, I'm leaving this behind and I'm not going to be a part of this anymore.
Right.
Even if he thinks that it's for, like, even if he thinks this is what I must do in order to fight back against the machinery of the thing.
Yes.
He is still being brought on side, right? Like it is.
Remember
go
it's your funeral, right?
Yes. All I need is for him to make that decision and I win.
Yeah. But this is so against not just number 6, but Patrick McGowan.
Yeah.
Right? Who has refused to use guns.
Since the start of Danger Man.
Exactly. Right? And he'll still like lead people to their deaths or whatever, but he won't shoot them.
Right.
So this is a wild departure.
He is a Batman. I'm not going to save you, but I don't have to risk. I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Exactly. He is extremely Batman.
Yeah.
I didn't say that for nothing. And so this is really interesting because, again, thinking about this going forward in The Prisoner, obviously I am cursed by knowledge, and Brennan is cursed by some knowledge as well. And
I am? Oh,
no. I'm informing you. Yeah, you've been cursed by knowledge.
I've been cursed.
But if you're watching this for the first time, I really, you can dismiss this episode as being just kind of a silly Western. But I want you to think real hard about the fact that this is a point that we have not seen 6 reach in the sort of metaphor. We've departed the point of the metaphor that we've seen so far. Mm-hmm. We are seeing the future of 6, or a future of 6.
Yeah, in a way, you could read this as whatever it is that they are doing to him to put him in this Westworld simulation has actually worked better than putting him in the village did.
Yes.
Because who knows how long this has actually taken. Maybe this has taken the amount of time that actually has taken place that he's been in the village. He's been there for 1.5 years. He's been drugged such that his psychosis thinks that it's taken this long to get to this point. But regardless, he's crested whatever that decision point is, right?
It's really interesting to think about. He takes the gun, he finds the kid, They do a, quick draw. It's
do.
the classic Western duel. The kid does an extremely fancy little flourish to put his gun away. Mm-hmm. And then with no visible bullet wound, falls over dead.
It's reminiscent of the like samurai, like yes. I don't realize I've been killed until my body starts falling apart kind of thing.
Yeah. Until the spurt of blood that was an engineering accident but looks awesome, right? Like comes out of them.
Right.
And that's really interesting as well, right? Because like the show spent so much, like put so much attention, made it bright red when they had, the sheriff taking wounds.
Sure.
For them to not show any wound on the kid is really interesting, right?
Yeah, like could you read that as they're not willing to show what it is that violence done by McGowan would look like if it were to actually transpire in that way?
It could be that. It could be the fact that they're playing with the fact that this is really a cardboard cutout, as we're about to learn.
Sure, right? He's not actually dead.
Like, why would a cardboard cutout bleed, right? Like, notably, nobody else except McGowan in this whole fantasy world bleeds, right?
Right, because he's a user.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or it could be something along the lines of like, the violence.
Sorry, that could actually be it. Like everything else within this is just a simulation that's being propped up. He's the only human within the grid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong. And it could be something along the lines of like, the violence of McGowan is conceptual in a way that like it is not physical, in a way that the violence of the kid is physical.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Where it's for McGowan to take aim and pull the trigger, it counts almost more it's almost the thought that counts, right? It's almost like
exactly.
The killer intent matters more than the bullet that flies out.
Yeah. You can feel McGowan's chi, right? The dark nen that's radiating off him.
Yeah, I can see the butterflies surrounding him.
He goes back in the bar after killing the kid. The judge rushes in. He's so excited, right?
I knew you had it in you.
He was the fastest I'd ever seen. And Six goes, the fastest you ever will see, right? Because the judge is apparently learning in this moment that actually Kathy was killed, right?
Right.
There's an interesting thing here, though, because based on a thing that number 2 says later, I think this was the plan. I think the plan was to kill Kathy, because the idea was to confront him with death, right?
I got the sense that was the plan, but that number 2 accelerated the plan.
Yes.
Too quickly.
Yes. And then he leads to this this big shootout sequence, right? It's a Western for about another 3 minutes. And then the judge shoots the sheriff.
Right.
And I think this bit of the transition back into it being number 6 is actually quite fun.
It's really good. It's again, I forgot how all this was put together. I've seen The Prisoner before. Mm-hmm. I've read the official Prisoner Companion. But I forgot just how it was put together. And so when it was all put together, it was like, oh, right, good, cool. Yeah. That's fun.
And McGowan starts acting for the first time in the episode,
right.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's like he wakes up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he wakes up.
Yeah.
So clearly what we've had here is sort of like a story within a story situation, mm-hmm. right? And I want to pause here as he wanders around the fake set of Harmony and he finds all the cardboard cutouts of the judge and then the kid and then Viking the horse, which they make a cardboard cutout of for some reason, which is awesome.
Yeah, he tears this headset off of his head where you can clearly see that all the dialogue is being pumped in and there's a little microphone where his dialogue is being radiated out.
And I think that what's really interesting here is we think about nested narrative in The Prisoner, right? So remember in A, B, and C when it's all about dreams, but then at the end, they one for one, the dream becomes reality.
Right.
And I want us thinking about more nested narratives in the next one. But I think that there's a really interesting thing here, right? Where the nested narrative, anytime we have a nested narrative in The Prisoner, right? It's being drawn as this is reality. We're being drawn back 1-to-1 into reality.
Right.
right?
Everything has a clear analog.
Exactly. And I think that what's especially interesting with that, Brendan, if we think about you being a genius and we think about the prison, the village as an analog for McGowan's own life, right? There's something is being said here about narrative and reality and how those are ultimately the same thing.
So we spoke a little. Let me extrapolate a little bit and see if this is where you're going. Where we spoke on our Ice Station Zebra episode. We were talking about McGowan has been typecast as a spy. And we were talking about how the prisoner plays into this idea of the world of spies and the things that they can do and the systems that prop them up. And then we get Living in Harmony right after where immediately it's saying this sort of thing can happen to anyone. Here is a situation where this happens to someone. You can imagine this as something that happens to a sheriff. You can also imagine this as something that happens to an actor who everyone decides you're going to play cowboys and you're going to play cowboys for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's universal, right?
Right.
We make prisons all the time. Foucault said it first. More on that later.
Sure.
So then we get, I think, what is, there's a lot of fun scenes. I think the scene of Six rushing to the Green Dome and the camera staying in the Green Dome for this conversation is one of the coolest scenes in the episode.
Yeah, I think, I spoke before about David Tomlin's camera work. I think some of the stuff here really, really works well. I think the sense of panic and the sense of like frenetic confusion as he comes out of the dream world into the other dream world of the village is really, really good.
Yes. And we're not actually in the village even, so we're just getting distance, like overlooking shots on it. Right? It's like they're two video game world.
For our third Nolan movie, he's moving from one level of the dream back up one level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's playing Fathom. Anyway, so we get into the Green Dome, right? We get to number 2's office, where we see everybody else, which is number 2, number 8, and number 22, as we've talked about, right? Wearing the same, receiver broadcaster thing that we saw Six wearing.
Number 8 has the best fit out of anyone in the entire village. He looks so stylish. He's wearing this red, track jacket, right? With his khakis. He just pulls it off so well.
Yeah.
And we get
to do
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a stupid joke.
He looks like a Disco Elysium character.
That's good. That's better than my joke.
And here is where we learn that he is actually the administrator of the experiment. That number 2 is in charge, but once again, number 2 is sort of suborned to someone who had some sort of a method for getting answers out of number 6. And that someone was number 8, who has been playing the kid the whole time.
Yes, again is number 8, right? Because, this is not our first number 8.
Sure.
Right? We also had, obviously, number 8 was in our... number 86, right, was in a very similar role, still an 8 in there, right? With the change of mind, right? But we also had Wanda Ventham as number 8. Remember Wanda Ventham, a.k.a. Benedict Cumberbatch's mom?
Yeah, of course I remember Benedict Cumberbatch's mom. How could I ever forget her?
Who's the computer expert, right? We had Rosalie Crutchley, who was the queen, right?
Yep.
From Checkmate, right? We had, just all the way to the beginning, right? The very first, the arrival number 8, right? Who's the watcher assigned to number 6, right? Number 8 is just this continue figure of an expert brought in for a specific purpose. Right? Anyway, so they have this fun little conversation where 2 basically blames 8, saying it won't work. 8 said it would have worked. It's all your fault. You move too fast. 2 says it's not, it's easy for you to say I'm the one who's going to suffer for this.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a clear sense that even though 8 was in charge of this, this torture, honestly, this torture method, right? That 2 was still the one who must have okayed it or approved it.
Yeah.
Such that he's going to be the one who takes the fall here. And this whole time, number 22 has just been sobbing in the background and then runs out.
Yeah. Bleed is real.
The bleed is real.
Yeah.
It's rough. And so she immediately goes back to wander the streets of Harmony.
Yep.
She's not the only one who's feeling it, though.
Yeah.
The scariest shot in the episode is her on the stairs, kind of overcome with emotion, and then Alexis Crainer's face out of the shadows.
It is terrifying.
It's so good.
And then it just happens again, right? He's just there to menace her once again. And this time he's screaming. He's screaming like a wounded bird.
Yeah, it's kind of 0 to 100.
Yeah.
But he does such a good job of selling the, like, this guy's not well, that it works in a way that, like, you know, if this had been some other, you know, number 2 assistant character, it would have felt like nothing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, there's lots of assistants that I can think of that would not be able to pull this off.
Yeah. And number 6 apparently was also feeling it because he was also wandering the streets, right?
Yeah.
And so he runs in, right, just in time for Kathy to die.
Yeah, we get sort of a belabored, like, I wish the dream had been real from her.
Yeah.
Maybe the worst showing from her in the episode. I don't really blame her. I don't think this should have been here as part of the script. Like, I think her, like, feeling... Like, her having returned to the scene mournfully and having been killed, I think would have been plenty, but...
Yes. In the script, this is even longer.
Oh, great. Good.
So they go on to have her say how it's actually true that they have her brother locked up, and that's why she went along with this. Which is like, come on.
Here, like, let me give you my life's history before I die.
Yeah, of strangling related complications.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, there, like, if you get, there are other ways to die where this makes sense. If you get strangled, this isn't how this works. No. If you're able to say, like, yeah, I wish the dream had been real, then I'd be like, oh, well, let's get you to a doctor. It seems like you're going to be okay.
Yeah, you were able to speak despite your throat being crushed.
Right.
But, you know, there's something to be said about linking these two again with the connections between reality and narrative here, that, like, their characters were cardboard cutouts, and so they're just as flimsy.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Anyway.
Number 2 rushes in.
Because apparently he was also feeling it.
I mean, he seems to... he rushes up in a golf cart, which suggests that he got an alert of some kind.
Of some sort.
Number 22, the kid... No, not number 22. Number 8, the kid...
8.
Leaps up, and he's back in character and thinks number 2 is the judge.
And gonna hit him.
Yeah. And so instead flings himself off the second balcony... The second floor balcony, and breaks his neck.
Yes.
That's a crazy thing to have happen in a Prisoner episode.
Yes. And for there to be no dialogue after this.
Yeah.
There's the weird overdubbed Cockney line. Like, you can clearly tell it was ADR'd.
Yeah.
Like, what he's saying does not match his mouth movements at all. Mm-hmm. He falls off the thing, instantly died. Again, they're really flimsy in this episode. They die easy. 2 and 6 lock eyes, and 6 just walks out.
It is once again, like, it is one of these things that is so typical of the unique character of the prisoner, where number 6 in theory wins, but it is such a downbeat ending. Yes. Is this what victory looks like?
That's what I keep saying.
Right.
Yeah, it's brutal. In the script, 6 is supposed to say, "Let justice be done, the judge shall be judged," which is awful. Blame Tomlin for that one.
I will.
But he didn't record it, thankfully. So if we think back again to, like, we've moved beyond the prisoner. We're, like, forecasting the future of where the series is going. Mm-hmm. 6, or a future, right? 6 partakes in a violence that he has been holding back, that he has been unwilling to do, right? Whether that be institutional violence or using knowledge to violent ends or whatever, right? Immediately, there was a massive upswing in the violence and the death.
Right, yeah. It's like
all he gets for it is this.
Yeah, it's like because of who he is and what he represents, and the way that, because of his personality and his arrogance and the way he comports himself, such that other prisoners often mistake him for a warden. His willingness to engage in violence of this caliber is like unstopping a release valve, where all of a sudden the status quo changes in this like absurd, dangerous way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It rules. I don't know what to tell you, man. This is a good episode.
This episode might be good.
There's a couple other things that I just wanted to mention.
Please.
I wanted to mention them as we went, but we kind of went fast. I wanted to mention again the sort of like fan construction of the torture arc here.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Like, this is clearly a level beyond what they were willing to do at the beginning. Right? Like, even in the Schizoid Man, they were never like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to make him dress up as a cowboy.
Think of like, I was thinking of it a different way. I was thinking about like the way he gets worked over by the boys at the end.
That's
of
true too. Yeah.
Free for All of like, that's what like a scene of violence, a beatdown sufficient to require censorship to remove the shot where he's bleeding from the mouth is. Yes. Look at this. This is like, consider the escalation that's taken place.
Yeah, definitely consider the escalation.
Right. Granted, this episode wasn't aired in America or France, so maybe it was too much.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, he's leaking red candy juice. We can't show the American soldiers this. They'll never sign up for Vietnam if they know what it's like.
I want that pinko off the air.
It's true. He does bleed pink. Anyway, so but like we can think about this in that sense, right? Of like they're getting increasingly desperate,
right,
to do something with Six, and that means that they're going to try increasingly desperate ploys, right?
you can almost imagine number 2 going to the editorial room and going, "Anyone got any ideas for how to break number 6?"
I literally, if you know, we're going a little long, but I literally wrote down game idea. If you had to find a unique way to try to break number 6, how would you do it?
Right. Yeah. No stupid ideas.
Yeah. Anything.
We're blue skies here, people.
Blue sky. Yeah. We want to do a King Arthur thing? Sure, whatever. Yeah. We're gonna dress up as Sherlock Holmes? Yeah, okay. We'll do anything.
Treat him like a little baby? Interesting. Okay. I'll think about it.
We're gonna write that one down. There's definitely something to do with kids, though. Kids.
I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna circle it. I'm gonna put it over here, though, sort of separate from the other ideas.
Yeah. With the good ideas, right? Yeah. Man. So there's that. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is this sense of like Six as like romantic knight errant.
Sure.
Because throughout the whole series, and especially in this episode, right, there are women who just like fling themselves onto him.
Right. Yeah.
But besides kissing Janet with his wet kisses, there's no reply, right? There's no response.
Sure. I mean, certainly not a romantic one. At no point does the sheriff ever exude the kind of ambivalence or outright rejection of Kathy that we have seen number 6 treat the other women of the village with. You could take that as like, well, he's in this different mode, and so he doesn't have any reason to suspect that Kathy is working for the judge in the same way that all the people in the village are working for number 2. You could also see it as, you know, we've gestured before at how they have flung young women at him and he has treated them all with suspicion, but throw a lady in her late 30s, early 40s at him, and suddenly he's treating her with a modicum of respect.
Yeah, smoothing out those eyebrows.
Yeah.
Madame Engadine is here. But
can I buy you some candy? I have an American voice.
In the script, he is supposed to be flirting with her, like flirting back, of being like.
That would explain. Yeah, she says like, "Oh, I'm blushing. I didn't think I could blush anymore," when he does nothing.
Yeah. He's beat up, and she's like, "Oh, this is working for me."
Yeah. I love how you bleed pink.
That's the most attractive color.
That's right.
Anyway, those are the last points that I didn't manage to hit on the way here, and I think are worth thinking about as we move forward. Anything else from you, Brendan?
Nothing else from me. Let's talk about our number one with a bullet. Some performance, scene, shot, line of dialogue, whatever your favorite thing from Living in Harmony was. Take it away.
Do you want to go first or should? Okay. And then I'm going to take him. I'm taking Alexis
He's all
Gaynor.
yours.
You can't have him. He's just so good.
Breakout
in this
star.
Episode. Yeah. If like we didn't mention it, but like in the opening credits, he gets a box around his name.
Yeah. What's up with that?
He's the only guy who ever gets it across the entirety of The Prisoner. This apparently, at least what I saw, was McGowan requesting it and saying that, like, I feel like we've got a real star on our hands here. I want to, like, draw people's attention to him. Right?
Interesting.
Which is a shame because, like, he didn't become the sort of movie star that at least McGowan thought he was going to. But regardless, like, this whole episode doesn't work without him.
No.
He is the foundation of it. He's the only reason why there's any feeling of stakes or drama in this dang episode, right? And I might be, a big proponent of the episode as a cipher for like understanding the series and thinking that it's way more clever than McGowan, who just sort of would dismiss it as the cowboy episode later on, would even want you to be thinking about here. But despite that, without Kaner, it's nothing. This episode is nothing.
Completely agree. An excellent choice.
But yeah.
I am going to give it to Valerie French. I've made no secret of my not outright disdain, as McGowan might have it, but my frustration with some of the actresses that get cast and what they managed to do with the lines that they are forced to say and the things that they are forced to do. I think Valerie French manages to take a compromised role and make it work. I think she does a lot with her facial expressions, with her performance, with her understanding of her character's beauty and her position within the world, both as Kathy and as number 22. That I think doesn't have the momentous impact that Canner's does, but it does help the episode hang together in a way that it desperately needs.
Totally. As I said, anytime that like those two are on screen, like the episode is working in a way that if they're not on screen, it is not really working anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a different show.
Totally. It's very much like a different show.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of shows, I think we have to rate it. Matthew, how are you going to rate Living in Harmony?
As I said, I think this is really important. I messaged Brennan before we even recorded this time, which we try to avoid because we don't want to burn pod. But I mentioned I think of this as being basically the third most important Prisoner episode. I think it's a really important Prisoner episode in terms of like not only understanding the show and the narrative at sort of like the narrative level, but also understanding more broadly the kind of message that Patrick McGowan was trying to make with the show, even if he decided to make it with silly cowboy times. Mm-hmm. I'm going to rate this 6 out of 7 crucifixes.
Just as Jesus would have wanted.
How about you?
I have a better appreciation for this episode than I did when I first started recording this episode.
Woohoo!
I think there's still a lot, particularly as David Tomlin is concerned, and to be frank, McGowan's performance as a like man with no name, sullen, non-speaking kind of cowboy, as opposed to a number 6 type, that I think just does not work as entertainment. I think the edits aren't very good, but
totally,
I like some of the stuff better than I dislike the stuff that I don't like. I'm going to give this 40 out of 52 playing cards.
Very fair. Very fair. Brendan, what are we doing next?
Next time, we return to the village for a normal story about number 6. You know, number 6, the normal guy.
The normal guy. Brendan, if you had to guess how many roller coasters were going to be in this episode of The Prisoner, how many would you say?
Thinking about the village, a set that I've seen many, many different times, and thinking about the number of roller coasters that are usually there, and thinking about the number of outfits that Patrick McGowan will have to wear
totally.
while
yeah,
he's
usually
there,
like one.
Yeah, usually, he's just, he's got the kind of outfit that he wears, and that's usually what he wears when he's there.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be 0.
Okay. Well, check back in, everybody.
Check back in next time as we watch The Girl Who Was Death.
Hell yeah.
A normal sounding name for a normal sounding episode. With a normal number of children in it.
Should we do our thanks?
Let's do our thanks. Thank you to Cy Sweetman, who made the incredible cover art for our show.
Yeah, thanks, Cy.
Thanks, Cy. We really appreciate it. Find Cy's work at cyfsweetman.card.co. Thank you also to Devin Nelson, who wrote the incredible theme to our normal episode and the theme you heard for this version of the episode.
Oh, I'm so excited!
Yeah. Matthew hasn't heard it at the time that I'm saying this out loud, but...
Oh, this is such a fun reveal for me.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Find Devin's work at devindecibel.bandcamp.com. If you somehow are just listening to this show now, listen to some of the other episodes. Find the rest of them at the-prisoners-dilemma.com. If you've been kidnapped against your will... and you're in the trunk, and the kidnappers are playing this on their iPod.
Yeah, as they drive you to a western town.
Right, as they drive you to a western town, they're dragging you behind their horses, and they've loaned you their iPod while you're getting dragged, and you're like, interesting.
This is gonna be unpleasant for you, buddy. Maybe try listening to these guys.
Yeah.
It's part of the torture.
If you've been listening and you enjoy our show, consider sharing us with a friend or leaving us 5 stars. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end. It's pretty astonishing. I never thought that we'd get to the end of The Prisoner. I just thought it would keep going on and on and on, or something bad would happen.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be like Simpsons or something. They're going to do like a million seasons.
Yeah, when we first started, I didn't know how many episodes it was. I just figured yeah. Yeah. And to be clear, lots of bad things have happened since we started. None that have yet prevented us from finishing The Prisoner. Not yet. We've got a couple episodes to go. Matthew, assuming nothing bad happens to you, where can people find you?
You can find me at Matthew Guz and Blue Sky. And Brendan, where can they find you?
You can find me at brennanmcleod.com on Blue Sky, or you can find my blog, sorely in need of an update, at brennanmcleod.dev. Matthew.
Yes.
Adios.
Adios, partner.